Sunday nights we are teaching on the book of Revelation. We've been in the book for over 200 weeks. An hour and 40 minutes on each one of these messages. And really all you have to do to find out what Revelation is, and this sounds very difficult, is define nearly every major word in the book. When somebody walks up to me and they say, "What does this verse mean?" I say, "I don't know what the verse means. Give me a word out of it." And I start defining the words in that verse, and I start pulling them out, and I start finding out what these things mean. And that's what you have to do. There's several ways to look at how to understand the Bible. You have to look at the context of Scripture. That is where it is in the verse, where it is in the chapter, what had been said about it, what it's going to refer to, and what it's going to be speaking about. And you have to go back to the chapter heading, and find out if the thought actually begins at the chapter heading. It usually doesn't. When you see CHAPTER, chapter 17, that's not in the text. They actually had scrolls, and they would just unroll the scroll to a point. Usually, nearly every time, chapter headings don't mean anything. You're continuing something from the previous chapter, unless you're in a book like the Psalms, something that the Psalms are written individually. When you're talking about Revelation, you're talking about the Old Testament. If you're going to understand Revelation, you have to go with the context. Context would be a Greek word called syntax. Syntax. It comes from syntax. When we think of syntax, syntax, syntax comes from synthesis, synthesis, and taxis, taxis. To synthesize something means it has to mesh together. And the word taxis, that is a Greek word, comes from the word tasso. And tasso means an orderly arrangement. And tasso is the word that's used in Romans 13:1 when the Bible says that the powers that be are ordained of God. That's the word ordained, and it's also the same word in Acts 13:48. Acts 13:48, when the Bible says, Paul preached at Antioch, and he said, "As many as were ordained to eternal life believed." And tasso means an orderly arrangement. Now, we here at Grace and Truth Ministries, we believe that God has preordained everything, that God's got a family that He chose before the world began, and He's arranged everything in the world and in the universe for their benefit. That's why the Bible says there in Romans 8:28, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. And then the next verse says, "For whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son." Well, for that little conjunction, that little coordinating conjunction at the beginning of verse 29 is referring back to we know that all things work together for good. All things means everything in the universe, and of course that includes all of the cosmos. The cosmos. We say cosmos, and the Greek word is kosmos. And that is the word world in John 3:16. It means an orderly arrangement. God didn't love everybody in the world. The Bible doesn't say that. Orderly arrangement. He's got a people He loves, and He has an arrangement for those people. John 3:16 says, "For God so, or in this fashion," that is an adverb. That's the word huta. It's an adverb. Adverbs tell how, when, and where. And this tells how or in what fashion God loved. And the word is cosmos, and it means orderly arrangement. and it is masculine gender, so God in this fashion loved the orderly arrangement of mankind, and that word love does not mean, is not the word phileo. The word, you got two words that have been ambiguously translated into, and I'm bringing out a point, how you study. Everything has been arranged for the benefit of the elect. You've got two words that have been ambiguously translated into the word love. You have the word phileo and the word agape. And that word agape is not the word phileo, and the word phileo is not the word agape, yet most preachers use them interchangeably, and you can't do that. Phileo means to have affection for or to like somebody. Now, like or affection only applies in agape when someone is keeping the commandments of God, because agape, you hear the Church of Christ and the Baptists and the Pentecostals talk about agape, and they have no idea what it means. That's probably one of the most misunderstood words in all of translation of Scripture, because America's going around saying, let's love everybody, everybody like everybody, and hug each other, you know.
The Baptists will hit on that word maybe whenever.
Yeah, but they don't know what it means, because my father was a Baptist preacher, and he hadn't the slightest idea what it meant. Well, agape there was an affection involved only when you kept the laws of God. Agape has to do with keeping a law or keeping a commandment. And that's exactly what 2 John says. 2 John 6. This is love, or this is agape. Here's the best definition of agape. This is agape. This is love, that we walk after His commandments. And that's not just the 10 commandments. That is all of the imperative commands in the Greek text. I've gone through this so many times. You have imperative moods. You have an imperative mood in the Greek text. The imperative mood is when something is spoken by a person and it's a command. When God said, "Let there be light," that's a command. Every time you find an imperative mood, if it is, "Enter ye in at the strait gate, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God," that's not a choice, that's a command by God. Or you have the word, you have enter, you have humble, you have strive to enter in at the strait gate. The word strive is the word agonizomai. Agonizomai, that's our word agonize. Humble is the word tapeeinoo. That means to level self. Enter is the word eiserchomai. And that word means to enter into something. Well, he says enter into the strait gate, strive, humble yourself under the hand of God. And you got many, 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 many more commandments of God. So we're not just talking about the 10 commandments. Love is walking in the commandments of God. And what I'm trying to point out, there's a synthesis of Scripture. Everything in Scripture has an orderly arrangement. And the reason I'm bringing this out, I'm going to show you something about the orderly arrangement of the 10 horns of Revelation 17. Everything is in an order. Now, I started to say to you, I could go through a bunch more of these imperatives, but everything was arranged for the sake of the church, God's wife. God loved His wife. God doesn't love everybody in the world. He loved His wife. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave Himself for. It says it in the Greek text, but the word is not it. The word is auto in its feminine gender. Husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave Himself for her. He only died for his church. He didn't die for everyone in the world. The man in hell is dying for his own sin. He is a vessel of wrath fitted to destruction. And God only so loved. If we're going to study the Bible, we must look at everything from the viewpoint of Israel, God's church. The church is spiritual Israel. Right? And I'm getting at the point. Old Testament, there's an arrangement of synthesis. You have to look at the context. You have to synthesize Scripture. And then we look at the grammatical, what is called the grammatical intrusion, or the grammatical construction of Scripture, what the grammar says. You have to look at the syntax. You have to look at the grammar. The grammar. You have to define the words, find out if it's a noun or a pronoun or participle, and I'm going to help you do that. And then you have to look, there's another way to study Scripture. When you're going to study Revelation or anything else, this stays in my mind constantly. I have been a mathematician at heart. I don't have the degrees that Mike has. Mike will make my brain hurt with his calculus, but I've always loved mathematics. And when I found out that predestination was true, and a boy quoted it to me when I was 1961, I was about 22 years old, and I had never heard Romans 8 and 29 in my life. Never heard it. Whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son. And predestination has an exact meaning. When I found this out, I began to realize that everything in the Scripture was mathematical. And I began to study the Bible from mathematics and God's mathematical viewpoint. And I have found out since I began to study that way, I have found that the Old Testament, I didn't discover this on my own. I think I found it over in Hebrews 10 and 1, but I've used Hebrews 10 and 1 to find out the mathematics of the Bible. Hebrews 10 and 1 says, the law having a shadow. The law was a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image. Not the very image. In fact, if you want to look at that, look at Hebrews 10 and 1, and I'm going to get back to the 10 horns real quick. Hebrews 10 and 1. Hebrews 10, verse 1. For the law having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. The law was a shadow, a skia. The word is skia. And the word skia means shade. It is the shade. You have to have an image to cast a shade, don't you? You must have an image. If you go out in the sun on a sunny afternoon at 2 o'clock, you're going to cast a shadow, aren't you? You're going to cast a shade. Well, the shade was here after. Isn't the image here always first? You have to walk outside and you have to have the image. Well, why is it in the New Testament, the image seems to appear after the Old Testament? Huh? Predestination, election. He hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. So we were here before the world began in the mind of God, casting the shadow here. We were in the mind of God before the world began. So the image was actually here eternally, in the mind of God from forever to forever. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Forever is the word olam, O-W-L-A-M. There in Ecclesiastes 3:14. Now that word olam doesn't mean from now on. What God does always has been, it always will be. Has God ordained a church, a New Testament church, to be spiritual Israel and be circumcised of the heart? And has He ordained that from forever? Well, then the church has been here from forever, so the image was here in the mind of God from forever, casting the shadow in the Old Testament. The shadow is not the real thing. Literal Israel is not the real thing. Spiritual Israel is the real thing. That's what's going to last. Well, there was a temple in the Old Testament. That was a shadow. And there's a temple in the New. And that is you and I, the church. Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? The law was written on tables of stone in the Old Testament. Now the law is written on fleshy tables of the heart. The Jew was circumcised outwardly in the Old Testament. Now our hearts are circumcised. In the Old Testament, the law was inside the Ark of the Covenant. There's the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant was sprinkled. And the law was inside the Ark of the Covenant. And now our hearts are sprinkled. Therefore, our hearts are the spiritual Ark of the Covenant, aren't they? Everything that you have in the Old Testament, you have in the New. We're the temple. This was called the house of God because God dwelt between the cherubim. And Christ is the son of His own house. Whose house are we? So everything in the Old Testament was a shadow. And I'm saying this so you can understand something about the 10 horns. Let's go back to the 10 horns. I'm kind of sprinkling a little bit of the orderly arrangement, a little bit of predestination. Y'all have heard me say these things in predestination, but predestination is about God's family that He preordained before the world began to bow and be holy before Him. Well, Old Testament Israel did not bow because they went after Baal in the Grove, the system that was brought in the church and renamed the Christ Mass. Now, everything is arranged in an orderly fashion. We're talking about the beast at the end of time. If there's a beast at the end of time, we know that the beast was here in the Old Testament. Everybody's looking for some future man to rise up. They're looking for a man. That's the wrong thing to look for. And I keep saying the reason they're looking for a man is when you go over here to Revelation, the 13th chapter. We've already spent time on all these chapters. When you go to Revelation, the 13th chapter, verse 1, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. I'm just going to cover some things real quick. Beast rise up out of the sea. Of course, we know what that is. That's not some mystery. The beast, and he goes on to say, it had 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 heads, 10 horns. Heads were capital cities. Capital cities. The 7 heads on where the woman sits are 7. The 7 mountains are 7 heads on which the woman sitteth. A head was a mountain. A mountain was a capital city. And Babylon is called a proud mountain. God says, I'll make you a destroying mountain. And He says, I'm going to make you a burnt mountain. You've destroyed the world with your pride. All the world was founded on Babylon. Babylon mothered all idolatry, Revelation 17:5. And she built all idolatry on Genesis 11:4. Let us make us a name. That's where it all started. Well, heads were capital cities. I'm not going to go through the capital cities. I've got tapes on that. If you want to know what the capital cities were, each one, let me slow down. First of all, the beast is Babylon, getting in a hurry. The beast is like a lion, bear, and leopard. Well, we know who that is. That's in Revelation 13. It's the same lion, bear, and leopard as Daniel 7. Now, how can the beast be something future, some future when it was the lion, bear, and leopard of Daniel 7 coming up out of the sea. In Revelation 13, it's a lion, bear, and leopard coming up out of the sea. Well, I'm not going to go through it again. I showed you why Babylon was the lion, and the bear was the Persian bear, and the leopard was the Grecian leopard, and the lion or Babylon was overthrown by Persia, the bear, and that was overthrown by Greece, the leopard, and the leopard divided up into 4 generals after Alexander the Great died. That was his kingdom. And after he died, his 4 generals, Lysicamus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, took over his kingdom. And Rome subjugated these generals. And Rome became the beast with iron teeth. And this beast has 10 horns. I'm not going to go through the heads. If you want something on the heads. Now the sea, for those of you that hadn't been here, the beast, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, all had its boundaries on the Mediterranean Sea. It was bound upon the Mediterranean Sea. I superimposed the boundaries of the beast world system upon the sea. There's Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Turkey, and here's Egypt. Libya over here, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, which was ancient Babylon, Iran, which was ancient Persia. And these are the boundary lines. In the purple is the approximate boundary lines of Assyria, and the green is the approximate boundary lines of Babylon, in the green. And then in the orange is the approximate boundary lines of the Persian Empire, and the brown is Greece. And the blue, I've got that, is Rome. So it came up out of the sea. And, of course, the base where the woman sits the woman sits upon waters. And the waters where she sits is peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. But that beast evolved, I'll just go ahead and say it for those of you who hadn't been here. Rome, the Roman Empire, was outlawed and reinstituted into Roman Catholicism. And Roman Catholicism, this has become a worldwide beast now, and it's a system of self and wealth and money and me and what I want, because Roman Catholicism was founded on the Edict of Toleration when Constantine issued that Edict of Toleration in 312 AD, and that Edict of Toleration says let's all get along and let's be politically correct and don't anybody judge anybody or put anybody down. That's a Roman Catholic attitude. We're to judge righteous judgment. Jesus stood and pronounced the judgment of God upon evil men, and so did the apostles, and they died for it. When Jesus stood and faced the Pharisees in the streets and said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, you compass sin land to make one proselyte, and after he's made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves." He stood in the streets and called Pharisees children of hell. And they killed him for those words in the 23rd chapter of Matthew. And the world will come after you when you pronounce the judgment of God upon the world. Now, I want us to get back to the 10 horns. I said something earlier about the orderly arrangement. We know that's Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. You want me to go through that after church? I'll be more than happy, or come by the house or call me. I've got hundreds of tapes on this, hundreds. Now, let's get back to the 10 horns. I was trying to bring out a point. Horn does not mean everything. Here's another way you have to study the Bible. You must look at idioms and metaphors. You have to look at figures of speech, what things mean in the original language. You cannot say, well, that doesn't mean that today. We don't care what it means today. God means what He said 2,000 years ago when He said it. Let me read to you the word idiom. Idiom means the language or dialect of a people, region, class. The usual way in which the words of a particular language are joined together to express thought. And they give a good illustration here. Like, he goes on to say, a phrase, construction, or expression that is recognized as a unit in the usage of a given language and either differs from the usual syntactic patterns or has a meaning that differs from the literal meaning of the parts taken together. Not a word did she say. She heard it straight from the horse's mouth. That's an idiom. That don't mean some horse was talking to her. That means that's an idiom using an expression to say she got it directly from the person. The Bible has got all kinds of idioms in it. And a metaphor is a figure of speech containing an implied comparison in which a word or phrase ordinarily and primarily used of one thing is applied to another. And the Bible has got hundreds of idioms in it. That's why I suggest you buy a real good set of biblical encyclopedias. If you can find them, McClintock and Strong, get these. These are just magnificent. Get Hastings and get Smith's. I've got all those. Here's a Schaff Herzog. I've got a lot of these in my library at home. And you've got to find out what words mean. What they meant when they said something. When they said horn, that was a metaphor. It didn't mean honk honk. It didn't mean something sticking out of the head. Usually when the word horn was used, it meant power. Do you know that the majority of time in the Bible, when the Bible uses the word horn or horns, it's not talking about something come out of an animal's head. It's not talking about that. God would use certain verses when he would say, 4 horns carried Israel away into captivity, the last few verses of the first chapter of Zechariah. Well, what were the 4 horns that carried Israel into captivity? Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Horns meant power is what it meant. Power or authority. Or strength. In fact, horn has the same basic meaning as you would use when you'd say mountain. A mountain was a capital city, or it was a power. If you said mountain, or you said head. This was metaphoric language. Now, let's get back to and I brought out earlier that you have to go to Old Testament to find out what things mean. I believe that the book of Revelation is nearly completely revealed. The word revelation, apocalypsis, comes from apo and kalypto. Apo means off with, and kalypto means cover. Means off with the cover. Now, why is God taking the cover off? The only people he's going to reveal himself to is his elect family. He says so repeatedly, over and over and over. No man knoweth who the Father is, or who the Son is, and to whom he will reveal him. And that word revealed is the word apocalypto. So revelation is a revealing of all the rest of the Bible. Starting with Genesis, going up through the book of Jude. You'll find your answers in the Old Testament. That's where they're found. Now, I want us to look, and I want to point out some things to you about the 10 horns. The 10 horns, you have to see what they do to actually determine what they are. If you'll remember, the 10 horns in Revelation 17 does 2 things. It gives power to Babylon. All the time, Babylon is the beast. When Babylon rises up, right in Genesis 11 and 4, that's reinstitution of Adam and Eve worship of the garden. Adam and Eve worship of the garden. And the beast is here from Genesis 11 and 4 till the beast is destroyed at the end of time. At end of time. Now, what I want you to notice, the beast has to rise up and get power over God's people. The beast has to rise up and get power over Israel. Because no one has power over Israel if they are obedient to God, do they? No one. No one. Well, let's look at it very quick. Very quick in Deuteronomy 28. I'll read this to you quickly again. Deuteronomy 28. I'm just going to skim the top of this. I've gone through it so many times. I'm going to read the first verse and just hit the top of it. It came to pass, if thou wilt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, this is God talking to Israel right before they crossed the Jordan River to go back and repossess the land that was given to their father Abraham hundreds of years before. To observe and to do all his commandments. If you follow God in his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God shall set thee up on high above all the nations of the earth, all these blessings shall come upon thee, only if you hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. You be blessed in the city and the field, your body, your ground, your fruit of your cattle, your kine, your flocks of sheep, your basket and store. And verse 7 says, the Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face, and your enemies, regardless of how many they are, whether it's a world empire, shall come out against thee one way, and they will flee before thee 7 ways. And then in verse 15, it'll come to pass, if you do not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, all these curses are going to come upon you. You'll be cursed in the city and the field, verse 16, your basket and store, 17. The fruit of your body, that means your children. The fruit of the land, the increase of the kine, that's your cattle, the flocks of sheep. You'll be cursed when you go out and come in. Cursing, vexation, and rebuke will be upon you. And then he says in verse 22, the Lord shall smite thee with consumption. The Lord will do it. People say God won't make anybody sick. And with fever and with inflammation, with extreme burning, with the sword and with blasting, with mildew, and they will pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, you won't get any rain. And the earth that is under thee shall be iron, and you'll have no crops. And the Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust, and that's all the rain you'll get. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed. That's the beast that's going to come in and remove you to all the kingdoms of the earth. The only way the beast can have any power is if Israel is disobedient to God, isn't it? Well, the 10 northern tribes disobeyed God. The 10 northern tribes disobeyed God. Here's the 10 tribes. Here's the 2 southern kingdoms. Here's northern is. This is the United Kingdom, Saul, David, and Solomon. Then Solomon allowed his wives to keep their Shemosh, Molech, and Baal gods. And then he split the kingdom because of Solomon's apostasy when he allowed him to go after Baal in the grove. And I remind you, that's the system that was brought into the church by Constantine and renamed the Christ Mass. And the kingdom was split. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, has the southern kingdom, and Jeroboam has the northern kingdom. And it was through Ahab and Jezebel. Jezebel's father was Ethbaal. Ethbaal was the king or the prince of Tyre. Here's Israel. Here's the Mediterranean Sea. This is Israel. And this is Tyre and Sidon up here. Northern Israel. Ahab is king of northern Israel. He goes to some party and sees Jezebel, this Ethbaal's daughter, Ethbaal. And Ethbaal was the priest of Baal and the priest of the Ashtaroth, the tree goddess, are the same thing as the Christmas tree. And they married it down into Israel. And when they brought it down into Israel, that polluted Israel. It was the 10 northern tribes that polluted all of Israel because, let me remind you, these are the 10 northern tribes, 2 southern tribes. We know that the 10 northern tribes polluted Israel there in the 16th chapter of 1 Kings, don't we? when Ahab married Jezebel. But did the 10 northern tribes pollute southern Judah? How? Jezebel and Ahab, it was northern Israel that polluted southern Judah, because Ahab and Jezebel's daughter was Athaliah, and Jehoshaphat was running around with Ahab. Jehoshaphat was righteous. Ahab was unrighteous. And when they got together, Jehoshaphat's son Jehoram saw Athaliah at some party, and he said, I like that woman. She's foxy, and she was mean as a snake. This woman is the wickedest. She is hell on 2 feet. This woman, if any woman belongs in hell, she does. Well, what do you get when you mix Jezebel and Ahab? Well, you get the same thing when you mix Adolf Hitler and Mata Hari, children of hell. She was a child of hell. You say, what's so bad about her? Well, when her husband died and then her son died, she said, I want this kingdom for myself. So she killed all of her grandsons to try to get it. So all of Israel was corrupted by northern Israel's apostasy, weren't they? And there were 10 tribes in northern Israel, and each one of those tribes was called a horn within itself. So when northern Israel goes after Baal in the Grove, and I want to remind you, that's the system that Constantine brought in the church in 325 AD and renamed Christ Mass. It's the old feast of Saturn. And God destroyed Israel for 2,600 years and put them under the power of the beast that long. I'm trying to get to a place here. I want you to see something. You have to learn to match up the very image, and God not only has a very image of righteous things, He has the very image of unrighteous things. Everything that happened in the Old Testament is happening in the New the same way. I want you to notice something here. Look here back in 17th chapter of Revelation. The beast gets its power from the 10 horns. Well, what was it? The beast gets its power from the 10 horns. Doesn't it? Where did the beast get its power to take over the world? From the 10 northern tribes. And each one of those tribes was an army in itself. It was a power in itself. The 10 horns, I have no doubt, are the 10 northern tribes, because that's what polluted all of Israel through Ahab and Jezebel. And that's the very reason God destroyed both nations. Carried northern Israel away captive in 722 BC. Carried southern Judah captive in 586 BC. And they've been scattered for 2,600 years until May 14th, 1948. And then in the 6-day war of June of 67, from June 5th through 10th, that was the 6-day war when Jerusalem came back into the possession of Israel for the first time since Nebuchadnezzar leveled it 2,600 years ago. So, you think that has anything to do with anything? Yeah, what we're living in the end of time with all this apostasy going on. Apostasy is running rampant in the churches. It's just I am utterly astounded at what preachers don't know. Now, I want you to notice something. The 10 horns gives power to the beast. And when the beast comes in and carries northern Israel away captive in the 17th chapter of 2 Kings, how is it that northern Israel how is it that Assyria can carry northern Israel captive? Why? Because of Israel's disobedience. And then when they're carried away captive, southern Judah is relatively righteous up until you get to Manasseh down here. And you got some off and on guys up here. Of course, Athaliah is a witch. And then you've got fairly decent guys. But But you get down to 586 and they become completely polluted. So God carries them away captive. And they're in captivity for 2,600 years, other than the 4 decrees from the Persian kings to come back and rebuild Jerusalem and the city. And when God gives them the power to come back and do that, most of them don't come back. They stay in Babylon. They like it there. In fact, the kings of Persia release them, and they say, we like it in Babylon. We're getting rich over here. We don't want to go back. We don't want to go back over from Babylon over to Israel, 750, 800 miles, and rebuild a city and a wall. It's all like desolate land over there. So they stay there in Babylon. And they're in Babylon until May 14th, 1948. That's what's amazing. All of the world has kept them in subjectivity to them. Now, I want you to notice something. The 10 horns, verse 12, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as of yet. They haven't received a kingdom. That means they're going to get a kingdom in the future. Right? Future kingdom. Future kingdom. You say, boy, that sounds like you just messed up if they haven't received a kingdom as yet. Well, just wait a minute. But receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Well, as long as they're disobedient to God, they're going to continue to give their power to the beast. But they've had a kingdom because verse 16 says they've had a kingdom. Verse 17. For God hath put in their hearts, in the hearts of the, hath put is aorist indicative mood. Aorist tense indicative mood. That don't mean nothing to you unless you've been here. It means past tense. That's what it means. Aorist indicative is past tense. So, sometime in the past, before John is writing this, God has put it in the hearts of the 10 horns to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So, evidently they've had a kingdom. Let me erase some of this. Erase this and make it more clear. They've had a kingdom. They've had a kingdom. And then when John gets here, 96 AD, he's writing Revelation. They haven't received a kingdom as yet. That means they're going to get one in the future, doesn't it? And have given their kingdom to the beast. Somewhere in the past, somebody has given their kingdom and their power to the beast, haven't they? The only people in history that gave the beast power to overthrow the world was Israel. And the way they gave them power was because they disobeyed God. Now I'm going to point out some things to you. I want you to see some things here. You've got several places where you see the beast receives power from the 10 horns, which is the 10 tribes because of Israel's disobedience. And then in Revelation 17, the beast receives power from the same system that destroys it, doesn't it? Israel, I'm trying to show you how to study. Israel gives their kingdom to the beast. Well, let's just put it this way. The 10 horns gives power to the beast. And the same 10 horns down here destroys the beast. The same 10 horns destroys the beast. Now, as long as Israel's obedient, they could overpower anyone. We've shown that in the 17, 18, 19 chapters of of 2 Kings, where that the Assyrians came in to attack northern Israel. Well, northern Israel had disobeyed God. They had disobeyed God when Hoshea was king of northern Israel, and they carried them away captive. And Sennacherib said, well, as long as we're here, let's run down here and attack southern Judah. We've overthrown all the nations around us, so we might as well go take southern Judah at the same time. There's only one problem. At that time, Hezekiah was the king of southern Judah, and Isaiah was their prophet. And you don't attack Hezekiah and Isaiah, because you got to take on the living God when you do that. Two of the most righteous men that ever lived. Well, when he gets down there, God sends his death angel through the camp of Sennacherib, and he kills 185,000 men in one night. I want to show you in the Old Testament, we know what destroys the beast according to Revelation 17. Revelation 17, look at verse 16. Now Jesus overcomes the 10 horns in verse 14, but he doesn't destroy them. Evidently they are not enemies. And you look at verse 16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, which is Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Well, you've got the whore. Who is the whore? Babylon what? I know that, but... Huh? You got to remember, when you use the word Babylon, you're referring to two different things. You're either referring to the empire or the city. But the capital city, when the capital city is destroyed, the empire collapses. If you overthrow Nashville, you overthrow the state. If you overthrow Washington, D.C., you overthrow America. If you overthrow Moscow, you overthrow Russia. If you overthrow London, you overthrow England. If you overthrow the mother that rules to the borders and the boundaries, you have the system. Babylon is the religious system of wealth and money and me and what I want. Back up to verse 1, chapter 17. There came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials. What are the 7 angels? Huh? 1 and 20 of Revelation. 1 and 20. The 7 angels are the 7 stars in the right hand of Christ. Remember? Gosh, I don't have time to go there. Pleiades. 7 stars in Orion. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. And remember, angel is the word angelos, A-G-G-E-L-O-S. Doesn't mean a heavenly being. It can be a heavenly being, but it can be me. Angel is the common Greek word messenger. Wouldn't we have a lot less problem, especially with these goofy TV shows, if they hadn't translated the word angel and had just translated every time you find the word angel throughout the Bible, messenger? Wouldn't we have a lot less trouble? I saw an angel. Did you see? My friend down the street said she saw an angel. No, she didn't. She's lying. Now, that's what Paul says in Colossians, the 2nd chapter. Don't have time to go there. You read through it and you'll see it, okay? It's their vain imagination. They haven't seen a heavenly being. The word angel means messenger. Michael was a messenger of God's wrath. Gabriel was a messenger that brought the message to Mary about her pregnancy, that went to Daniel and talked to Daniel about the time of the evening sacrifice in Daniel 70 weeks. And I'm an angel, and all the preachers of the churches in the first century were called angels because that's the word messenger. You understand? I know y'all understand if you've been here. I can't get over it. It's such a simple thing to understand. And preachers won't tell you because they don't know. Greek scholars ought to stand up and say, look, the word angel just means messenger. Dadgummit. That's what it means. It's not some heavenly creature necessarily. Now, where was I? 17:1. There came one of the 7 angels, which was one of the spirits of the 7 churches. And when people say the church is not here past the 3rd chapter, well, if the messenger is here, the church is here, isn't it? The message in us is Christ in you, the hope of glory. It's the Holy Spirit. Thy word is truth. The Holy Spirit is truth. John 14, 15, 16, John 15, 26, John 16, 13, 1 John 5 and 6. Is that fast enough? The Spirit is the truth. The Holy Spirit is the picture of the oil inside. The message is the oil inside of us. And the candlesticks is the church. It's not candlesticks. It's one menorah, one lamp, isn't it? That's the picture of the church. Is that Jewish? The church is Jewish. The Baptist eyes raised around, they don't want you to say the church is Jewish. Paul said Paul told a Gentile church, we are the circumcision, me, a Jew, and you, a Gentile. We are the circumcision, which worship God in spirit. Our belief is in Christ, and we have no confidence in the flesh, in Philippians 3:3. That's the true circumcision, and circumcision was a title for Israel or the Jews. We are spiritual Israel. I don't know why people resent that. Paul said circumcision is not outwardly, but of the heart. And a Jew is not outwardly, but of the heart. That's why he tells the Galatians, the 6th chapter, circumcision availeth nothing but a new creature. And he says, those that walk according to this rule, the rule of a new creature, peace be on them and upon the Israel of God. God's Israel is the one that's the new creation. That's us. We're spiritual Israel. So we are somebody asked me the other day, said, well, if the 10 horns are there at the end of time, where's the other 2 tribes? Well, all of the power that's been given to the beast wasn't wrapped up in Judah. It was all wrapped up in northern Israel, when they're the ones that brought Baal and the Grove in, or that Christ mass system, into northern Israel, and they pushed it down into southern Judah through the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. So 10 horns it's metaphor. You understand that? It's metaphor for the power that Israel had to conquer the world. That's what it is. Now I want to show you some things here. All right. One of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials talked with me, saying, come hither, and I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Well, when we see the 10 horns hating the whore and burning her with fire and destroying her, when Babylon is destroyed, here's the thing. In this same chapter, in verse 5, Babylon is the mother of harlots. Mother of harlots. That doesn't mean she's mother to all of the literal whores in the world. That's not what it's talking about. The word harlot, porneia, Porneia. Porneia is the word idolatry. And the word idolatry is the word Idololatria. Idololatria. It comes from ido, meaning to see, and latruo, meaning to serve. It means to serve or worship what you put into your eyes. It means to serve what you see. Well, if Babylon is the mother and nurturer of all sin, and didn't this serving what you see starting in the garden? Eve looked at the tree, didn't she? And she began to serve it. And she put it into her eyes. And Ecclesiastes 1:8 says, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The mouth will not simply utter it, All things are full of labor. Man will labor to fulfill what he puts in his eyes and his ears. It all began in the garden when Eve looked at the tree and she fed herself all that's in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That's what she saw in the tree. The tree is good for food, pleasant to the eye, it would make her wise. So if you destroy Babylon, what mothers all sin, what's the time period have to be? Has to be the end of time, doesn't it? When Babylon is destroyed, it's the end, isn't it? When the city is destroyed, the empire goes down. When you really want to overthrow a nation, you go to the heart of the nation, you go to the capital city, and you destroy it. When the expeditionary forces in Europe during World War II, the last stronghold of the Third Reich was Berlin. That's the last place. Once you strike the heart of something, the rest of it goes down. So when we're talking about the 10 horns destroying and burning her, eating her flesh and burning her with fire, that's the destruction of Babylon, isn't it? That's the destruction of all sin. How could the 10 horns be evil when they're going to destroy everything that's sin? Well, let's look at the Old Testament. You have the very image. I believe the 10 horns are definitely the power that was given to the beast through Israel's disobedience. Let's look and see. If the 10 horns destroys the beast in the New Testament, there's 2 Babylons, isn't there? There's the Babylon of the Old Testament that was a literal world empire, and that same Babylon developed into a world ruling system, which is Roman Catholicism, but it's not the Roman Catholics going to have a Roman Catholic Pope up in the White House or in the United Nations. The way Roman Catholicism is ruling America, and I don't have time, I've gone through this in great detail, but the way they're going to rule the world, they're already in control, and people don't even know that. Because when Roman Catholicism was founded by Constantine in 312 AD, actually 325 AD at the Nicene Council, first thing he did was issue the Edict of Toleration, or the Edict of Milan. He issued an edict. He was having problems with the empire. He thought he was going to lose the empire. He was trying to pacify the Huns and the Vandals and the Goths and the Visigoths, which were rampaging against Rome. He said, I've got to pacify everyone. So I'll bring their gods into the church, their tree goddesses and their sun gods. I'll take their feast of Saturn and rename it Christ Mass. And that's exactly what he did. The festival that went from December the 17th to the December the 24th, where they threw the Yule log in the fire and it sprung out in the form of the tree the next day. And it is the Christ Mass tree, and it is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil from the garden. And that's all historical fact. This is not a matter of argument. It's the most wicked thing that's ever happened in the history of the world, and the world wants to embrace it. Catholicism was founded on an edict of toleration where they said, we'll all get along. We'll all just get along with each other and hold hands with each other. Aren't we doing that today? Don't we call that political correctness? But before political correctness was here, we were already doing it. Everybody be nice. Everybody get along with each other. I know you're a Catholic. I know you're a Baptist. I know you're a Pentecostal. But we all love Jesus and love God. And everybody believes each other's going to heaven a different way. That's foolishness. You can't go to heaven the Catholic way by eating Jesus. You got to get dipped in water and eat crackers and grape juice to go the Church of Christ way, and you got to accept Christ, which you can't do, to go the Baptist way and pray the sinner's prayer, and everybody gets along going to heaven together, and none of that's true. You have to have a new birth, and if you're born again, it's because God knew you before the world began. And he has to convict your heart. There was no tolerance in Israel for any other religion. God said, you go after another god, you die in Israel. So in spiritual Israel, we can't put up with this toleration thing, this Roman Catholic attitude. The Edict of Toleration began in 312 AD. And it's kept going ever since. And everybody's saying, let's be nice to each other. And behind the scenes, they're killing each other and cutting each other's throats. Right? Business people are going, hi, I love you. You love me. We all love each other. Love God. Jim Brown, you're just too bitter and angry. Let's love each other. Let's all get in one big hugging fest. No. We're not even supposed to be cheerful to people who bring another doctrine. There was no tolerance of any other religion. There was no freedom of religion in Israel. When you come to Grace and Truth Ministries, there's no freedom of religion. That's Roman Catholicism. I think they're already here, aren't they? We've got all their unholy days. We've got the Christ Mass. We've got their Ishtar. Easter doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. Those are the... One guy saw me draw a swastika on the board one night. And he said, are you a Christian? What are you, a Nazi or something? Don't you dumb person. Huh? What are you? Anyway. I didn't invent the swastika, neither did Adolf Hitler. That's called the sun wheel in the ancient world. That's the sun wheel. It's called Thor's hammer in the Scandinavian countries. That's what Israel is involved in. And there's 8 points on the swastika, and those are the 8 feasts of the sun festivals of the pagans in the ancient world. And this feast right down here is called Yule on the bottom left-hand corner, and this is called Samhain, Samhain. And Samhain is what we call Halloween, and Yule was here 1,000 years before Christ, and that's called Christmas now. And this is Ostara up here. And that's what we call Easter. And somebody will see that and say, what are you, a Nazi? What are you, a skinhead? No, my hair, I got most of my hair. And you can't even put information on the board for somebody without them getting all bent. I'm just trying to show you something, where it come from. Now, we've concluded some things here. Let me erase some of this. I want you to see, we've concluded that the 10 horns gave their power to the beast, and they destroy the beast. Let's see who destroys the beast in the Old Testament, okay? Let's go back to gosh, I don't know where to go. Let's go to Jeremiah, the 51st chapter. Jeremiah 50 and 51... Jeremiah 50 and 51 is the destruction. Well, wait a minute, I didn't read something to you. I got it. Go to Jeremiah 50 and 51, but let me read Revelation. You don't have to turn back if you don't want to. You can if you want to. I'm going to hold my 50 and 51 there. I'm going to run back to Revelation and read Revelation 18, 1. Revelation 18 and 1. Well, I'll read verse 2 also. After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Why does it say it twice? Because you had an Old Testament Babylon, which was a literal Babylonian system, an empire and a city, and you've got a New Testament Babylon, which is an international city and empire. It is all over the world because Romanism is throughout the world. And people say, you don't like Roman Catholicism? No, I hate it. But no more than I hate the rest of these pagans out here that are not preaching truth. My father was a Baptist preacher, and I was ordained a Baptist preacher. And I can't stand the Baptists anymore because they don't know the truth anymore. They preached predestination 150 years ago. They knew that Christmas was pagan 150 years ago. And if the Baptists 150 years ago knew the truth, the guys today don't know. Because they're at opposite ends of the universe. I could fellowship with B.H. Carroll, who organized Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary because he believed what I believe. He does not believe what Charles Stanley and Billy Graham believes. He did not. And neither did the organizers of the Baptist Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. Did not. When you go back to those J.P. Boyce and you go back to William Carey and those guys, they believed what I believe. I don't mean this in any offensive way other than water and crackers and grape juice, but I'm teaching basic Baptist doctrine from 150 years ago. This is basic Baptist, Presbyterian, basic Congregationalist, Puritan doctrine from anywhere from 150 to 300 years ago. I would have lots of friends if I lived 250, 300 years ago. Martin Luther would be my friend. John Calvin would be my friend. Thomas Watson would certainly be my friend. I love that man. John Bunyan would be my friend. Now I'm set in isolation. Oh, Jim Brown's crazy. He says all this information. It can't be true. It's too much information. That's crazy, isn't it? That's crazy. I've got this magnificent library in my home. I read all the time. I study constantly. And I've been doing that for 51 years. I ought to know something. And when I spew out all this information, well, that's just your opinion. You're stupid. That's all I got to say to somebody. Like, you're stupid. Get away from me. I'm too old to even care what you think. I don't care. You get to that point, don't you? I don't care what you think. Now, look here in Isaiah. Remember, the 10 horns destroys Babylon over here. I believe the same way Babylon is destroyed over here, it's destroyed over here. They have to match up. Look here in Jeremiah. Well, I'm going to go, yeah, he does. Let's go over here to Jeremiah 50 and 51 is the destruction of Babylon in the Old Testament. In fact, if you look at chapter 50, verse 1, the word that the Lord spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Here is their destruction. Declare ye among the nations and publish and set up a standard and publish and conceal not. Say Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. For out of the north there cometh a nation against her. Huh? I thought it was Israel going to destroy. I thought it was Israel going to destroy Babylon. I think it is. Let me show you the way God speaks in abstract terminology. Out of the north cometh a nation against her. Who's going to come against Babylon to overthrow her? Persia. What is the Persian king likened unto? Huh? In Isaiah 44 and 45. Hold your place right here. Hold your place and go back to Isaiah 44. 44. It is Cyrus. Cyrus is the king of Persia that overthrows Babylon. Now I'm going to show you the abstractness that God uses. It is northern Israel that overthrows Babylon. It is Israel that overthrows Babylon with the 10 horns. And Israel overthrows Babylon over here in the form of Cyrus because Cyrus is called God's anointed. He is the picture and the shadow of Jesus over here, of Jesus, because look at it here in Isaiah. How much time do I have, Mike? I ain't going to have time to get through this. Look here in verse 26 of Isaiah 44. Speaking of God that confirmeth the word of his servant and performeth the counsel of his messengers, that saith to Jerusalem, thou shalt be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah ye shall be built, And I will raise up the decayed places thereof. What's Isaiah prophesying? That Jerusalem will be rebuilt. Because Isaiah's prophesying about 712 BC, and it's not until 586 BC that Jerusalem is leveled by Nebuchadnezzar. This is the prophecy before it happens. Ye shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. That saith to the deep, be dry, I will dry up the rivers. When Cyrus came in to conquer Babylon, Babylon is on the Euphrates River, about 100 miles north of the Persian Gulf. If you come up here, just about 50, 60 miles, split, go north. On the Euphrates River, the Tigris goes this direction. Babylon is found right there on the Euphrates River. And Babylon had 400-foot walls, had a 400-foot moat, and the river ran around it and through it. And they said, we're so powerful, no one can overthrow us. We're too high. Walls are too high. Babylon was 14 miles one side, 14 miles the other side, 14 miles, and a river ran right down the middle of it. And they had a 7-tier bridge go across the bridge from one part of Babylon to the other. The king of Persia said, I'll go up north here. I'll block off and divert the river out into the desert. And I'll march down the riverbed and I'll conquer Babylon. And that's exactly what Cyrus did. And the whole purpose of him conquering Babylon was to give Israel decrees. And here is how Israel conquered Babylon. The whole purpose of Cyrus had no purpose in himself. Cyrus's purpose at the very end, when you're reading the very end of 2 Chronicles, the 36th chapter, and you flip the page, you go to Ezra, the 1st chapter. The last few verses of 2 Chronicles 36 speaks of Ezra, excuse me, speaks of Cyrus overthrowing Babylon and then giving a decree for Israel to leave Babylon and go back and build their temple. Let me say something real. This is very abstract thinking. The reason Babylon was overthrown was to liberate Israel. Israel's liberation going back to Israel is actually what overthrew Babylon. Israel actually overthrew Babylon. And when the 10 horns, which is Israel over here, overthrows Babylon, that's when Jesus comes back and takes us out of here. No pre-trib rapture. That's not true. We're going to be here till the end of time. We're going to be changed at the last trump. And when we're taken out at the last trump, Babylon will have no reason to stand, will she? So even when you're... All right. In the New Testament, when Jesus comes back, the way the 10 horns destroys Babylon, well, when he comes back, the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout and with the voice of the archangel and with the trump of God. And we which are alive and remain shall be caught up to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And at that point, Babylon will collapse. The only purpose for Babylon, I keep saying this, Babylon was nothing more than a switch in the hand of God to spank Israel with. And when God causes Israel to be obedient, which is the church, and he takes us out to meet him, just like Cyrus, who is called the anointed of the Lord, sends Israel back, but the Old Testament shadow didn't work. Only 50,000 came back at the decree of Cyrus. Everybody else had been loosened in Babylon. They'd been there for years, and they'd have been allowed to own property, and like the Jews were everywhere, they took over. And they got rich in Babylon. They said, we don't want to go back to a wasteland and build some temple to our God. We got a synagogues over here in Babylon. So the same way in which the 10 horns will destroy the beast or destroy Babylon, the harlot, That's the same way it was destroyed over here when Cyrus, look at it, he's called the anointed of the Lord. Look at the next verse. That saith of Cyrus, this is God speaking, Cyrus is my shepherd. Cyrus is a type of Christ, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built into the temple, thy foundation shall be laid. And let me say this one more time. This is approximately 712 BC. And Israel, Cyrus didn't overthrow Babylon till 538 BC or 539. This is 173 years before his campaign to overthrow Babylon. He hasn't even been born yet, and he's prophesied by name 173 years before he's born. You think that's the sovereignty of God? You think that's his election? And look at verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holded. He said, Cyrus is my anointed. Why is he called the anointed of the Lord? Because he's the one that's going to start the deliverance of Israel out of Babylon, go back to Israel to rebuild their city and their temple that had been destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar in 586. To subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates. When he marched down the riverbed, and they had some big two-leaved gates that the women walked down to the river and wash their clothes and do their various chores down there. And he walked up and those two-leaved gates were open. But the Bible's not the only thing that says that. Herodotus says that. Herodotus paints the same exact picture that Isaiah is painting here. So when Cyrus is called the anointed of the Lord, that's because it was only the Persian kings that gave the decrees, gave 4 decrees for Israel to go back and rebuild their temple there in the book of Ezra and rebuild their city in the book of Nehemiah. And that's the 70 weeks of Daniel that I spent all last year on Sunday morning teaching on. And I will loose the loins of the kings to open the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. And I will go before thee, Cyrus, and make the crooked places straight. And I will break in pieces the gates of brass, and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give thee, Cyrus, the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which called thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. And go down to verse 7. You know, we believe in predestination and election, that God does all things. And we tell people that God says, I create evil. I form light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. That very verse is talking about the evil that God did when he brought Cyrus in there and caused Cyrus to slaughter the Babylonians. God said, all that evil I did. And there was a lot of pillaging and murder and raping going on then. People say, God wouldn't do that. Well, yeah, he would. This same account, I'll get to it in a minute. How much time? I'll see if I can get to it. Let's go to it right now. Isaiah 13. Isaiah 13. Here's another account of it. Here's another account of the same thing. Isaiah's account. Goodness, I can't read all this. I'd like to. Let me just read the first verse and skip down in the chapter. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see. Let's go down here to verse 11. I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease. And he's talking about the destruction of Babylon. And will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the gold wedge of Ophir. Therefore I will shake the heavens and the earth. Heaven and earth. Heaven meant the ruling class, and the earth meant the rule, didn't it? That was an old ancient idiom. I'm sorry, but that's what it meant. Don't have any time to go any further than that. I'm not sorry. Go look over in McClintock and Strong. And the earth shall move out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts in the day of his fierce anger. And it's talking about Babylon being overthrown by Persia. Let's read it. And it shall be as the chaste roe. Now concerning this, God said, I create this evil. Didn't he say that? This is the same account as Isaiah 44 and 45. And didn't God say he's doing this and he's going to bring this evil on Babylon? It shall be as the chaste roe and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people and flee every one in his own land. Every one that is found shall be thrust through. Now this is an account of Babylon's overthrow, and God said, I will cause it. I did a paper called, Does God Create Evil? And I've got just numerous verses on God saying, I will bring this evil upon Babylon. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Shagal, S-H-A-G-A-L. It means raped. Behold, I will. Just think on that a minute. God says, behold, I'm the one that will do this. People say, God wouldn't make little babies get their brains dashed out. God said, God wouldn't make somebody come in and rape women. God wouldn't have somebody kill somebody. He had Babylon go in and slaughter Israel. He said, I did it. We don't believe who God is. We got an Americanized way of thinking about who God is. He said, I'll do as I please. I'll have mercy on whom I'll have mercy. I'll have compassion on whom I want to. And who I will, I harden. And I'll kill who I want. I'm God. Don't anybody question me. We have made God an American God, hadn't we? He's an American God. He's nice. He likes everybody. No, he doesn't. He loved Jacob and hated Esau before either one were born. He hates all workers of iniquity. He says, I will stir up the Medes against them, against the Babylonians, which shall not regard silver. You're not going to buy your way out of this, Babylon. And as for gold, they shall not delight in it, and their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. And God said, I will do it. I don't know why preachers don't believe that. Didn't he say he does it? And that's not the only verse that says he does all the evil. He keeps saying, I will bring this evil upon you. I will bring this evil upon Israel. I will bring this evil upon... I will do it. Their eyes shall not spare children. In Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. This is about Persia overthrowing Babylon, yet it says the 10 horns are doing it. Israel is doing it because the only purpose of this is to liberate Israel. This is the beginning of the first decrees for Israel to go back. And it was only the Persian kings that gave decrees. It was no other kings. It was not Assyrians. It was not Babylonians. It was not Grecians. It was not Romans. It was Persian kings. And they gave the 4 degrees concerning Daniel's 70 weeks. And it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And dragons mean serpents, and there was a little animal like the satyr, and they said it stood on its hind feet, and it had hooves, and that's where they got this mythological creature called satyrs. So here's the destruction of Babylon by Persia, but the only purpose of this is to start issuing decrees to liberate Israel. And when we're liberated, that will be when Babylon will be destroyed. Can you see that? Let me give you over here in Jeremiah the 50th chapter. Go back to Jeremiah 50. If you hadn't been here long, I've been thinking about this, trying to show you the Old Testament and the New. Go to the 51st chapter. Goodness, there's so much here. In the 50th chapter, I got to verse 2, or verse 3. In the 50th chapter, verse 3, out of the north there cometh a nation against Babylon, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove and shall depart, both man and beast. And nobody will ever dwell there again. And Saddam Hussein said he was going to rebuild Babylon on the Euphrates, and he was going to be the new Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, and then I heard, right after he said that, I heard Grant Jeffries, this so-called prophecy teacher, say, and Nebuchadnezzar is going to do something that's never been done. He's going to dam up the Euphrates. What are you talking about, boy? You call yourself a prophecy teacher and you don't know that Cyrus did that? I couldn't believe it when I heard him say that. What do you mean it's never been done? Cyrus did it. Let me show you who destroys Babylon here, who God says. He says Persia is going to come in, but watch God's wording on this, okay? Watch his wording. In the 51st chapter, here's the wording of God in verse 19. The portion of Jacob is Israel, isn't it? Chapter 50 and 51 is the destruction of Babylon. I wish I had time to read through the whole 2 chapters. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. Israel, thou art my battle axe. Whew. And weapons of war. These whole 2 chapters is about the Persians and the Medes destroying Babylon, yet God says, this is very abstract language. I'm destroying Babylon with my battle axe, Israel. And they're not even going to be doing any battle. The whole purpose of the Persians coming in is to liberate Israel. Israel is my battle axe and weapons of war. Because with thee, Israel, will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms, and with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider. And Israel with thee, he said Israel was the rod of his inheritance. A rod was a battle axe. And with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider. And with thee will I break in pieces man and woman. And with thee will I break in pieces the old and the young. And with thee will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. And with you, Israel, will I break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock. And with thee will I break in pieces the husbandman. He's talking about everyone who is in Babylon. And his yoke of oxen, and with thee will I break in pieces captains and rulers. I will render unto Babylon. With you, Israel, you're my battle axe. This is, can you see the abstract terminology in this? Can you understand what he's saying? The only purpose for the beast was to subjugate Israel because of their apostasy. And the part of the beast that he was going to cause to liberate Israel were the Persian kings. And the head Persian king Cyrus was called God's anointed and God's shepherd because he was going to lead Israel out of Babylon with his decrees. Do you understand that? So when the 10 horns gives the beast its power, the 10 horns destroys the beast. Israel gave the beast its power. Israel destroys the beast by the fact that we're taken out. And there's no need for the switch anymore. Can you see that? I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of the Chaldea. That is another name for that area of land of Babylon. All their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord, behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroyeth. Remember, I said a mountain was a capital city. And the capital city is being destroyed here, isn't it? Well, that's what she was over in the Old Testament. She is that great city that reigns. The harlot is that great city that reigns over the kings of the earth. The last verse of the 17th chapter of Revelation. Isn't that right? She's that great city. I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroyeth all the earth. And I will stretch out mine hand upon thee, and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. Who is it that's going to burn Babylon? Yeah. Remember it over there in Revelation? Remember in Revelation? Revelation 17. 17. The 10 horns which thou saw upon the beast, they shall hate the whore, shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. The 10 horns are going to burn the harlot. Over here, God just got through saying Israel is the rod of my inheritance, and Israel will burn the mountain. Israel has to be the 10 horns, doesn't it? That's figurative language. The 10 horns is the power that they had to retain the kingdom, but they gave it up to the beast. Didn't they? And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Nobody's raising up the literal Babylon ever again. Not. I knew Saddam. I couldn't believe Jeffrey. What's his name? Grant Jeffries. Started to call him Jeffrey Dahmer. I couldn't believe that Grant Jeffries would say, well, no one's ever done this before. And he's saying these things, and he was actually giving credibility to the fact that Saddam Hussein is going to rebuild Babylon. And this right here says it will never be inhabited again. In fact, this is said several times through here that it will never be inhabited again. But there will be a Babylon that will be inhabited. It's a worldwide system of self. And that will be destroyed by the 10 horns when we're taken out to meet the Lord in the air. At the last trump, we don't believe in the pre-trib rapture. That's only about 175 years old. A doctrine in America. And he says, they shall take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Now, I don't have time, but let me just show you something. One other thing. Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Don't have time to go through it. I'm out of time, ain't I? Man, what is it that destroys? Remember, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. In Daniel, the 2nd chapter, I'll just give you this and just stop. When you see Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, in the 7th chapter, this is the beast. I'll do this real fast. Beast, Daniel, the 7th chapter. The base, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. And then you've got, in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, you got Nebuchadnezzar's image, which is the same thing as the beast. You got the head of gold. You got the breast of silver. And then you've got Greece there is the torso of brass, and then you've got the legs of iron. That's the same thing as the beast there. Well, the same thing that destroys the image is the same thing that destroys here. I'm just don't have hardly any time. Any time at all, Mike? Well, I'll just give you this and go back to Daniel, the 2nd chapter, and we see this image. I'll just read real quick down here in verse 44. He's already painted the picture of the image. In verse 44, in the days of those kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. What's that? Israel, the kingdom of God. One and the same. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. And it'll consume the beast. It'll consume the image, right? For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, previously in the chapter over there in verse 35, and that it break in pieces. The stone cut out of the mountain without hands break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The stone is the picture of Christ, the anointed of God. You cannot separate. Let me give you something very abstract thinking here. You cannot separate Christ, the anointed, from his flock. And wasn't the Persian king Cyrus called the shepherd of Christ? And he has a flock that he's going to deliver from Babylon. He gives the first decree for them to leave and go back and liberate the Jews. So the same thing that happens over here happens over here. Can y'all see that? I want you to see this. This is very important. I believe the 10 horns, because the 10 horns have to do with Israel's disobedience. For 500 years, when they went after Baal in the grove, that is the fire and tree worship. That is Molech. That's Ashtaroth. That's Venus. That's Hercules. Hercules' birthday was December the 25th. And that's what Constantine brought in the church and renamed Christ Mass. Huh? Isn't that amazing? And if I could teach on this for a year without going to bed and just stand right up here, I could do this around the clock for a year and put all this together. I got millions of things going on in my head after 51 years of study. And I've spent 30 and 40 hours a week studying sometimes, going for decades. And I wish I could impart all of this to you. And I rush through these things, and I'm sorry I have to rush through them. I just can't get them all in there. But could you see what we're talking about, the abstractness of it? The 10 horns has to be Israel, because it's Israel. Israel is the rod of God's inheritance, isn't it? And that God said it might have been Persia doing it, but it was Israel doing it. It might be the beast collapsing over here, but it's the fact that Jesus has taken us out to meet him. That's the whole purpose of it. And the only reason for Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, they were a razor strap. That's all they were for Israel. When Israel matures, God says, don't need that anymore. That's what he does with Babylon, casts it away. The beast. The beast here was one reason. It was to whip Israel. Just like it's the same thing David said in Psalm 17. David said, deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword and thy hand. It's the same thing God does with us. God will use wicked men to beat the tar out of us like he's done me and most of you, until we learn to behave ourselves. And when Israel learns to behave, it's time to take them out and go home and be with the Lord. And that's when Babylon collapses. Let's pray. Father, thank you for truth. God, help us to understand your magnificent picture that you painted for us. Crush us under your hand, Lord. You have to crush us and break our hearts if we're yours, Lord. You said you have to do that. God, deal with our hearts daily. Cause us to take our cross and die daily. Lord, I get so weary and so tired because there's a world out there that don't believe your word and don't want the truth. I pray that you'll give me strength to continue for many years to come if it's according to your mercy. I feel like Paul, I have a desire to depart and be with you, but it's more necessary for the church that I remain. God will continue to praise you and give you glory and honor for all things. In Christ's name we pray, amen. I hope y'all understood that. Huh? It is, isn't it? It is mind-boggling. We're glad you got here tonight.